Hey everybody, Jason Truding here with So Percussion. I'm doing another Brooklyn Bound podcast interview, and I'm very psyched. Actually, this is my third interview leading up to the show March 6th. It's at 8 o'clock, March 6th at So's Space down by the Navy Yard, 20 grand. And I'm here with Paul Pinto. Paul,
Yeah,
welcome.
how's it going?
So good, man. So good. I'm happy to be able to talk with you right now.
Total
Um,
pleasure to be here.
I feel like anybody I talk to in this setting, I feel like I know something about their practice. And then I'm like, wait, there's a lot that I don't know, which is like, you're gonna help me fill in the gaps right here, I think.
Yeah,
So
I get so. Sometimes I'm like, how much should you know about someone's practice versus like their output? but but I feel like I've gotten more appreciation for like, I don't know, like talking about practice. I used to be so impatient about talkbacks and things like that.
I know what you
Um,
mean. You
yeah,
mean not knowing how the thing is made, but just experiencing the thing.
kind of, because there's like the whole like we live in a kind of world where there's like on top of just doing the work, we also have to explain the work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's always really bummed me out, especially if an audience doesn't really know that much about your work. Like they're coming
Yeah.
to see like a bill of a bunch of composers, and this is the first thing they've heard of yours. They don't really know like like it's going to be performed once and then like shelved forever, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
like why should I talk any more than like this is the title? But I think like I don't know. I feel like I was not appreciating the building up of community and relationship that happens through talkbacks, through interviews, all that stuff. I just
Mm.
was like kind of ignorant and not really thinking about it. So I'm really
No,
happy
that's
you're
cool,
doing
man.
this. Yeah.
No, that's good perspective. I always feel like, yeah, I feel like the talking before the work thing is pretty rough. Like the
Yeah.
like
No,
explaining
yeah.
the work and then doing it. Like that
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
like rough. But the thing about like seeing something and wanting to know more,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? I've gotten into that. Oh,
Taking notes not to give a big intro on March 6th and
yeah.
also not to air this shit before the
Exactly. This. Scratch the intro. No PowerPoint. Um, All right, man. So first question is always the most like broad. It's just a ridiculous question, but it's basically like, draw us a line from small Paul Pinto discovers music. Like what was your moment of, hey, I want to be a composer. I want to be a singer and kind of draw us the line to where you are now, which is sitting outside of Pioneer Works in the back of your Prius.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
Oh man, if I knew at age whatever that I would
Yeah,
be here now, things would be
right.
very different. I remember like as a kid, I drew a picture of like where I thought I would be. And like I definitely was in a car, but it was like a convertible Lamborghini. It was
Yeah,
red and it was in California somewhere. And I grew up in New York and I'd never been to California. And I was like,
perfect.
California, that's where people end up when they were like want to do something with their lives.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't
I grew
really
up in
into cars.
California, and New York is where you want to get to. It's
Right?
a
It's like it's really funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I like I didn't whatever. So it wasn't it was like most children that grew up in the 90s, I think. Oh wow, that was like a super broad statement.
love it.
Like me, not like most children who grew up in the 90s, just like me. Just gonna talk about me. I was like, grew up in Queens, really into R&B, really like that was my bread and butter. I also had like my dad's old records, and most of that was like Julio Iglesias and like Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, and like some classic rock, but like not a lot of the classic rock that I would like that I love today.
Mm,
So like a lot of I wasn't exposed to like a ton of music.
mm,
I just knew the things that I liked. But the first thing that was like, classical or whatever the word is, was movie scores. I was like, I'd see a movie and I'd be like, wow, John Williams really knows how to write for the orchestra. I was like,
right.
I want to write for the orchestra like John Williams.
Uh,
So that was like the in to like, I want to be a composer someday.
mm,
I didn't know what that meant, but like that was like the in. So I got into I did some choral singing as a kid, and then in high school I learned how to notate, and I learned it basically from like I was in a gospel choir that was the only chorus that a non-music major could join at the LaGuardia Performing Arts
Oh,
school. I went for art, like visual arts, and the only chorus we could join, the only two musical things that I could be a part of. Actually, that's not true. There's three musical things. I was part of the gospel choir, whose music I didn't know at all, and like I was doing the sight reading thing of like singing a millisecond behind the guy next to me.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Awesome.
And the musicals, which I had no interest in musicals, but like it was like it got me singing and
Yeah.
performing.
I mean,
And I'd never played any prominent role or anything. I was just like some background character that either gets killed earlier or like just disappears, right? And then and music technology was like
oh,
one of the classes non-majors could take. So there were two art majors in there learning notation through a program called Encore, and
sure.
it was like a drag and drop music program. So I dragged and dropped notes. I was like, "Oop, quarter note. Up, there's another quarter note. Oop, another quarter note. Oh, one more quarter note. Let's put one more. Oh, doesn't fit. Okay, guess we're done. Next bar." Right. So that was how like I kind of that was my into learning notation.
Wow.
Um,
Amazing.
and it was like amazing. So there's some way that I've like kind of always associated technology,
Mm,
what technology with music.
mm,
um but then I went to college for composition and grad school for composition. I was like, you know what, I'm going to write only by hand.
mm.
That's going to be my thing. I'm going to like just like dive into the deep whatever of
Pen to
like
paper. Going pen to
profound
paper.
classical. Oh yeah, pen and paper.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm
Did
going
you
to
stay
do.
in New York or did you get out of town?
I went to Pittsburgh to Carnegie Mellon and then
Oh, cool.
to Glasgow to the Royal Scottish Academy, which is now called the Royal Conservatoire of
Wow.
Scotland. Yeah, it sounds fancy, right?
That sounds fancy,
Um,
man. Go with conservatoire.
Conservatoire. Um, and wait, what was the train of thought? Oh, so I finished my degree, and like some people were playing my music, but like no one was paying me to
Mm.
like, and like I had no prospects. I returned to New York being like, I'll just start a career in my hometown. No problem. I didn't know any musicians here or anything. So I like put a
Big
Craigslist
hometown.
ad.
It's like it's a big hometown.
It's a big,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like I started like I put a Craigslist ad for like the folks in Thing NY, and like and just like who wants to play new music? I don't know, like I have no
Okay.
marketable skills. Um and so from there I formed these groups and did these kind of DIY concerts. Um, and since no one was playing my music, I had to kind of like learn instruments. So I started with singing, and I like learned to sing a little better. And then I learned some piano, and I learned some percussion, enough to like just play the music that I was able to write.
Mm.
Um, and which also meant that like my music got less complicated
Yeah.
because I had to be able
That's
to
probably
play
a
it.
good filter. That's probably a
Right.
good
Yeah.
filter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then the progression of like more people play your music, so you get better at writing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but as a vocal performer and like multi instrumentalist, but like dabbler, not really like not in like the great tradition of those wonderful singer songwriters that can play everything perfectly. Just kind
Mm.
of a multidisciplinary dabbler. I just got really into text and open scores and like non-traditional ways of notation and electronic scores and the blend of music and theater and performance art. And like I had a lot of peers who like the folks at Thing NY, like the folks at Panoply Performance Labs, like the folks like a kind of downtown music theater scene.
Mm.
That's where I kind of like learned how to write for relearned rather how to write for other people. um but I did realize that I spent a lot of that time kind of doing me focused work, like self-portraiture and stories about myself and text about me, and also things that I could perform really well.
Mm.
um so uh, that's where I am today. I kind of spent a lot of time writing things that I could perform really well, and then translating that in whatever score format was needed for performers that I really like and trusted. Um,
That's
uh,
fair.
yeah,
That's Paul.
Bye.
So good.
That's good. I was like hoping, I was like partially hoping that a street sweeper was gonna come by and I'd have to like run out of the back seat
Yeah,
to move
same
this
thing for
car.
you.
Yeah.
This is perfect, Beth Paul. This is
I'm
this
just
is an
getting it
official
first.
podcast. This is an official podcast to get out of here.
Great. Yeah.
I told Paul I've never edited one before, and I think I'm still not going to. But so
No.
I have so many questions for you on that amazing timeline that you just laid out. That was well done.
Oh, thank you.
So like when you were Carnegie Mellon, when you were in Glasgow, like what music were you writing, and what were you writing music that it was more prescribed? Like, did you have, you were studying with someone and the style was kind of like, hey, write this, or were you like, and what groups were you writing for? Like, was it, were you writing string quartet? You had to write a string quartet. You had to write an orchestra piece. You had to write a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. They took us through, the things of a pretty traditional composition program, but with pretty exceptional teachers. I mean, Leonardo Balada, a Spanish incredible opera composer and orchestrator, was my teacher in the last couple of years. Reza Vali, also wonderful orchestrator, specifically of like chamber music and Persian music. And Nancy Galbraith, who is a Pittsburgh-based kind of made her living in like wind band arrangements and like large wind ensemble, like very rhythmic works. So I got to, and like my chorus teacher, Robert Page, who was like, remains like a huge influence, and like a ton of other really great teachers there. But they gave me like a really wide variety of things to write for. And the things that like I wasn't very good at, I just didn't do a good job at, like write a woodwind quintet. And I was like, I don't know. I guess that was the first assignment, write a woodwind quintet. And actually, the assignment was woodwind quartet. And I was like, I want to write for orchestra someday, so I have to add one more just to make it bigger, as big as possible. That's what I'm gonna write for. Not like really realizing that solo instruments is the hardest thing to write for, and I should have actually written more solo material to get better at that. But yeah, so I got assignments and stuff, and like the thing that I probably was best at and most interested in, and still carry today from like those early days of composing, is chorus music. I mean, I really wanted to write for chorus. I knew that like orchestra, I wrote one orchestra piece in undergrad. It was fine. It had some cool things to it, but it was fine. But like chorus, I felt like that was something that I carry today, even in like the electronic multi-track music that I do. I just think about how layers and layers of voices can work. So that really informs a lot of what I do. And in grad school in Glasgow, I had an awesome teacher, John Maxwell Geddes, who was just like insane Scotsman, who was like big in Germany, and just like he wasn't so much about assignments as much as like just like probing questions about whatever I wanted to write. And I ended up doing less work with the music side of the conservatory and more work with the drama department. I scored a couple of theater pieces, and I found this dance group in like what was it? It's not startling. Partick? I think it's Partick. This in like right outside of Glasgow, and started working for music, like worked on a ballet there. So I like theatrical music became like my focus, without really I don't know, I was drawn to theatrical music in grad school. So I think that was like,
well, and that makes sense, right? Like if you draw the through line to what you're doing now, like that makes a lot of sense to me, that you find things. Totally. So when did you move back to New York from Glasgow? What was the
so in 2005 I came back from grad school. I moved back home. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Love it. Well, I think the first time, I mean, so the first time I heard of, well, not the first time I heard of, but Thing and Why made a big, or was it Thing and Why, or was it when you did Robert Ashley's, when you staged Robert Ashley's big piece?
The outdoor one? The one
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
yeah, so that's Perfect Lives, and
Yeah,
that group is Verispeed, but it has Gelsey Bell and Dave Reuter,
got it. Okay, got it.
and a bunch of Thing and Wide players were playing in the show. I mean, it's kind of like we're
It's
like
yeah, yeah.
bed buddies, right? It's
Yeah.
just like
All I could think of was the backyard. The first one I played, and it was a weird, awesome way. Matmos, we've done some touring
oh
with this.
yeah.
And so Matmos kind of turned me on to Robert Ashley. I was like, what the heck is this music?
Yeah.
And then just how do you even play this music? It feels like, like so interesting to me. And I was starting to think about was starting to think about bigger pieces and what opera could be. And it just felt like this guy's maybe figured it out. Like,
Yeah,
it's
right. Or at least
incredible,
figured one version of it out. That's like
Yeah.
really. I mean, I think this is the thing is that like Ashley now is with Matmos and Verispeed and Tenth Intervention and probably some other groups that I'm not like in the know of, but like Ashley was so associated with performing his own music with his own ensemble for so
Right.
long,
Yeah.
like a band leader, right? And so when things get out of the band's hands into other interpreters, then in some ways it becomes classical music, right? Or it becomes like they become standards, or they become like it enters that world that we know as interpreters in a different way, and we can have a different relationship with. And I think that's happening for
Mm.
Ashley. It's been happening, but I think it's happening even more with Ashley's music.
And
Yeah. So I'm glad you got to see Perfect Lives.
yeah, well, that was like the first moment for me of yeah, thinking about and the way it was staged. Like there are just so many things, so opening up so many kind of questions, I guess, for me, and what music could be and how it could be,
Great.
delivered to people. Not to get us too off track, but with that music, I mean, is it how much of that music did he write down and how much did he not?
It depends on. I mean, for Perfect Lives, it changed a lot.
Mm.
When he originally was touring a production of it, he had a close collaborator, Blue Jean Tyranny, a pianist and kind of orchestrator, and they worked at organ and piano and electronics and voice to kind of create these sound worlds together. Bob often wrote like chord progressions, or in collaboration with Blue Jean, wrote these chord progressions, and a lot of the a lot of it is the words and the meter of the words dictating
Mm-hmm.
how long something goes, how something is paced,
Mm.
and the singer intoning or taking the root or the tenor that's there given from the orchestration, and using that to embellish their speaking voice in a melodic way.
Mm.
So I think it's like it came out of like maybe more like almost like folk traditions and like jazz tradition. Well, just like chord progressions and like a lead vocal on top of it.
Right, right.
Um, to the extent that like in different pieces of Ashley's, like he orchestrated more or less, or trusted more in collaborators or less. There are completely notated pieces too. There are complete prose scores. So it runs the gamut. But for Perfect
Mm.
Lives, which changed, from live performance to a television version to like
Yeah.
now we're reinterpreting, and Matmos and others are like reinterpreting as live performance.
Mm.
Um, Now, we're doing Big Ears this year,
Mm.
doing Perfect Lives in Knoxville
Oh,
in
amazing.
on April 1st. So
Yeah.
another site specific version of that. Um, and wearing, some of the arrangements are uh, follow the book, follow me for the chord changes, and
Yeah.
other things are very meticulously written out. Every note of every part is
Yeah.
written out, and we have that across our arrangements. So there's a diversity of arrangement,
Mm.
diversity of style, and diversity of delivery.
Man, that's amazing. I'm contemplating. We were at Big Ears last year, and I'm
Oh,
contemplating just getting in my car and driving down. There's so
oh,
many
you
things
should.
to see.
They're
So
so
I
good.
may see you on April 1st. We'll see about that. I feel like there's a whole other conversation that we're gonna have at another time, because I mean, the way that both of us and our groups are interpreters of music is really, I'd love to ask you more questions about that with Robert Ashley and with the work you're doing with Julius Eastman. And that's become, we've been doing some work there too. And I it's a whole other conversation that we're going to have either.
Yeah. The next podcast is going to be instead over a beer, talk like it's going to be 4 hours talking about arrangement.
Yes, please. Yes, please. But I want to get us back to, to what you're doing. Because man, it's such an exciting way. You do so many things. It's gotten me excited because I think I my work, I do most of my work through So Percussion, but I do some writing on my own as well. And so does a lot of things. And I'm feeling very kindred in a lot of great ways, where you're coming from. But I want to hear, take us to at least what your plan is right now, for what you're going to be doing on March 6th. I told you, you have a week. Things can change up till the last minute. Brooklyn Band's a pretty fluid.
It might change that vibe, man.
It could change that night. It could change that night. But what's your plan right now?
So the thing that I've been working on is this piece that called 15 Photos that was originally commissioned. The first part of it was commissioned by the Resonant Bodies Festival. And I did a solo voice performance of it there. In 2018, I did about 40 minutes of it. And put it to bed when the pandemic happened. And it was a set of songs. It started off as a set of songs with relationship of like my body and what I don't love about my body, parts that hurt, parts that age, and masculinity, specifically medieval ideas of masculinity and medieval epics and things like that. But I had like no through line. It was just like disparate songs. So I put it to bed and I picked it up a couple years later. With the help of director Kristen Martin, who's a friend, and the artistic director of Here. And I was in residency at Here for 3 years doing Thomas Paine and Violence, the opera of mine from 2017. So I got to know Kristen as a friend and a trusted collaborator. And so we got in the room together and she started asking me all these questions about this work, which I was interested in reviving, but didn't really know what the important parts of it were, what were the vital parts of it and what could be embellished. So now it's a 90-minute solo piece that has it's just a barrage of text. And at some point it's going to get whittled down, but not today. So I have these basically the idea is in the tradition of medieval like itinerant bards, like storytellers who travel around and be like, this guy, let me tell you about this guy and all his adventures. Let me tell you about this guy and all his adventures. Well, taking that tradition and like posing the question, what if two epic heroes, Sir Gawain and Beowulf, met but were trying to kill the same dragon and had conflict about that? And that's like the loose story. And in there are like all these questions about like masculinity through a modern lens, and like what does it mean to be the observer of these two male figures in the bar fighting over who's going to kill this dragon? Like what observations are made about that? What does it feel like to be the dragon? What is it like? So these kind of like untangling of myth and filtering it through questions that I have as like a person who loves these stories, but like have so many questions about it, and like so much appreciation for the poetry. And if you take all the words away, like what's left? So kind of rewriting the stories, re-summarizing, and like
that's amazing. Is the text is yours or
the text is all mine? Yeah.
Coming from yeah. Cool, man. Amazing. And so you're doing all 90 minutes.
Yeah. So on March 6th, I'm going to do all 90 minutes.
Perfect.
No intermission.
Do it twice.
We'll see if the other performers have any time on the slot. No, I can't remember if you said 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Something like that.
Okay, wait. I boiled it down to like a song from the beginning, a song from the middle, and a song from the end.
Killer.
Yeah.
And
so that's what I'm going to work on.
Or
what?
Are you accompanying yourself in any way?
Just like the gestures of like piano, percussion, tuba, I think.
Oh, this is
Oh,
harp.
harp,
This is
harp.
harp. Yeah.
Oh, I see, I see. Theremin. Yeah. Okay, flute. Yeah. No,
Theremin,
no, no.
yeah.
More like laptop, press go.
Perfect.
Uh, that'll
Well, did you
be
see
that'll.
that was my last one, Paul.
That was
I
a
did
lot.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of bringing the thing with like I do a lot of tape parts for like fixed media stuff for the work I do, video and audio these days.
Mm,
But I kind of always want to bring a huge rig
mm.
and like turn a bunch of dials and knobs
Yeah,
and things. It's just like a play. I just press play, but nothing does anything. But I'm always tweaking things as if it were. I
I think
always
that's
have that in. Yeah, I think, but it's not what I'm going to do for this show,
yeah.
but I'll do it eventually. Um, yeah, this one will kind of be like a mix of three songs in progress, and I hope that's all right. I'm kind of like
That's
really into like singing things in progress, like so I'll
100%.
be doing three things, some of which I have pretty well memorized, and some of which is like not memorized at all, and I'll be kind of winging it. Um,
Are you trying to get fired from this gig, Paul? What's up,
yeah,
man?
well,
No, I'm just joking. Brooklyn Bound is 100. I think I told you this when we first connected about it. It's 100%. Like, so always uses it as work in progress space. We're gonna be trying out a couple new things. It's totally that
great.
space. So I love that. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately this piece is going to be at a giant round table with like 50 or 60 audience members at the round table,
Oh wow.
and then like musicians in the background, like percussion, saxophone, I don't know, like
Mm,
maybe like definitely percussion, right?
yeah. Yeah.
In like kind of drifting in and out of visibility,
Wow.
but it'll be
And will
framed as
you
a
be
solo
sitting at the
piece.
round table?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll be sitting at it, I'll be on top of it, I'll be under
Yeah.
it, I'll be above
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
like
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
And I think on March 6th, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test out this little stupid idea that might turn into a great idea, which is that I'm gonna describe the stage directions
Oh,
in
perfect.
mid performance of things that
Yeah.
you're not seeing,
Oh, I love that.
um, as
Yeah.
part of the rapid text delivery, and see if
Yeah.
that like is like uh, both to like help visualize it, but also as a like a I don't know, as something I'm kind of interested in trying out with this piece anyway. What if like we didn't see the expensive set? We can only because we couldn't afford it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we just say what would happen if we had unlimited budget.
Dude, I love that. I'm very predisposed to love that idea. We'll see. I'm sure
Great.
it'll feel. You'll see how it feels in the moment. But that sounds
Yeah.
amazing to me. That sounds
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah. We'll try it out.
And the piece is called 15 photos.
Yeah, it's called 15 Photos. That's what originally was written, and Alex Karyaka, the wonderful photographer,
Mm,
took these photos of me, and I kind of made a song for each one, or I
mm,
tried. That was the initial prompt. It's not stayed in that direction, so
yeah.
the title may change, but
Yeah.
for
No. Sure.
now,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I'm calling it.
Oh
These
man.
little like snapshots that are like individual songs that have a through line. Um, and you can stay with the through line, or you can just enjoy
Yeah.
the performance. Yeah.
Man, I love it. That sounds amazing. I will definitely be. You got to tell me when the premiere is. 2028. I don't know what we're thinking about. How far out you're planning? I
Well,
want to be there.
2024, man.
Perfect.
I'm
Yes.
itching to get this thing out there.
Yes.
You
Do
know.
it. That's amazing. I will be there. That sounds remarkable. Man, I have a couple other questions that I usually ask of folks. And this, I think I
Yeah.
told you this podcast. Well, I guess you mentioned Resident Bodies. This first started coming out of that
Yeah.
in a show there, and then listening to Lucy interview, all the folks that have been on that festival. So it started off as just an audio thing, and then during the pandemic, we moved to this Zoom space. But then
Wait, is
the
this
question
podcast video? I can't remember.
was that
Is this
her? No,
podcast
hers.
gonna be video?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. We're gonna see
oh,
Beth
great.
jump through the background.
Oh,
We're gonna
great.
see,
Yeah. Awesome.
and there's all these awesome characters, just walking, past your car because you're in Brooklyn. It's just like a nice little stream of folks walking there.
It's really
Folks are
lovely.
gonna see it all. Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But so the obvious questions when I first started interviewing folks during the pandemic was just like, man, what a weird time to be an artist. How are you doing? Or how is it, and as we sat in it, that was more like, is this changing your practice as an artist, or what is your relationship with even, I mean, for a while, we all question, I think, about I don't know, I have the questions about myself as an artist and the
Yeah.
whys, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden huge things are happening. And then, I mean, pretty soon into the pandemic, and that's maybe one of the only times I've seen you on Zoom. We were at the New Music Equity Action
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
thing, you know, like when George Floyd was murdered, there was for our organization, it just became, I mean, almost I want to say an embarrassing point that we weren't talking about this earlier, but a moment to kind of reflect and talk about our scene and talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves, you know. And you know, I feel like what I've said to other people this week when I've been talking to them, you could just keep listing things. You can just keep listing things. I mean, the political situation that like you can just keep listing things on like how intense these last few years have been. I think
Yeah.
for you as an artist, has this been a time of rethinking some of your practice, or has it been a time of you know, finding different value in your practice, or doubling down on something that's already been important to you, or like what has been your, yeah, I guess like have these super intense years, how has that been for you as an artist in you know, 20 words or less? No, I'm just joking. In as
Yeah.
much time as you need.
Man, I think like um what I think the political strife of 20 of 2020, in addition to like just everything being like ratcheted up, um I think solidified a part of my my art making, that I don't want to be an artist activist. I like that solidified for me. That felt that like the work that I can do as an artist is only so much, that
Mm,
I just have to keep investing in these other things, these other ways to donate, these other ways to donate time, these other volunteer activities. Like I just have to reinvest in those things, because
mm,
I couldn't find a great way to marry them.
mm,
Even if my work like poses questions about the way we live as Americans, it doesn't give answers, and that's not enough.
mm,
So I think that got reinforced.
mm,
Um, that sort of thing got reinforced. There were new things that picked up in terms of like at what rate, at what pace we can expect to work, and what this always happens with like labor movements always learn from oppressed people's movements, right?
mm,
So like I think the New Music Equity Action changed labor practice as much as it changed anything about racial diversity. Like
mm,
it like labor practice became a part of it. So for me and for the groups I'm a part of and for the projects I'm a part of, there was a real rethinking about labor, and like valuing my time, valuing my collaborators' time, not expecting that we could just like go endlessly. And that's a hard lesson.
yeah.
And like that was a hard lesson for me. Like I'm kind of just like I just keep going, and
Mm,
I forget to like stop and eat or like
mm,
pee. So it was like being mindful of other people's needs in the room
mm,
was a big thing that I just had to keep reminding myself of.
mm,
Um, and so those were like that's like interaction with nation, uh, and altruism, and then interaction with community. And personally, the another an artistic change that happened for me was I I uh, I got small and more independent. So I wanted to do video. I wanted to do multi-track recording. I just doubled down on that work.
mm.
Um, and sorry, my phone might die.
Perfect.
But I
We're almost
doubled down
there.
on that work, and I got really into video. I got
Mm,
really into multi-track recording,
mm,
and I just made that. I just got better at it.
mm,
And it's like knowing plumbing or electrical before calling a contractor.
mm,
Now I have like a wonderful video collaborator, Cameron Neal. We're doing this project called Whiteness, that's premiering in WNET All Arts in April.
mm,
We've been working on this project for 3 years, since prototype 2020, 2 years since prototype 2021. And um, I now know more about video production and video editing so that I can like work with better collaborators who are awesome at this stuff, and like be able to share language, share vocabulary, to think about pacing, to think about how visuals interact with sound in an interesting way. So that became much more of my practice, using video and and installation work. That's kind of like something I'm kind of dabbling in a lot.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
The first thing you said rings very true. For a long time, so did a few projects that were really influential for us, but wasn't our best work. And
Mm-hmm.
it became to be like they were like projects about things that we felt strongly about. Like we started to
Mm-hmm.
make things about things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel strongly about those things, and I like to make things, but I don't make things about things very well. Like my work is more abstract. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And realizing that, like, oh, like when you just said, like, I'm not an artist activist, like I have activism in me, and I'm an artist, but they're not necessarily the same thing. That was
Yeah.
really cool to hear you say, just because I think I've been trying to diagnose that for myself as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, some people are wonderful
Yeah,
artist activists,
totally.
but
Yeah.
it wasn't my forte. And like I have, since this year I joined the Here Art Center's board,
Mm,
um, and I've joined the Jersey City Arts, where I live, Jersey City Arts Trust Committee,
mm,
which gives out money to Jersey City artists, organizations, and educational orgs to like do arts programming.
mm,
And I do more grant panels.
mm,
I do as many as I can.
mm,
So I believe in like giving time to the community artistically,
mhm.
outside of just making art. But
Sure.
in terms of as a maker and as a performer, I couldn't swear those things.
That makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah, yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Thanks for asking that.
yeah, for sure. Man, we usually go out on the same question, and I think you'll be able to give us a good one before your phone dies and before you go
Yeah,
make art.
great.
Not about it. No, not activist art. Man, this is a pandemic question too, I guess, was more
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
for a long time we weren't playing shows. Finally, I feel like we're touring again, and like there's many shows we can talk about. But I think what I realized for So was that we kind of had these little mythologies about around touring. You know, we had these like these these moments that happened in different shows that became important to us, and we would carry them with us, you know, like, oh, the time that this happened, or this crazy thing, or this wonderful moment, or whatever it is, those stories that we have from ourselves touring. There are definitely wonderful moments, but for us it's a lot about the shit that goes wrong as well. Like that's like kind of our like story. But like, what's something that comes to mind for you, whether it's in your solo work or with your groups, like some just memorable performance moment? It can be a funny one, it can be a
oh
beautiful
man,
one, it can be
I
a tragic
I
one.
have I have great memories of touring.
Mm,
Um, so I did for man for many years. Jeff Young and I toured this um, political satire uh, called Jeff Young and Paul Pinto, Patriots Run for Public Office on a Platform of Swift and Righteous Immigration Reform, Lots of Jobs, and a Healthy Environment. And it was a like cardboard box set. We loaded in,
wow.
performed, loaded out. Um, and it's one of my favorite things that I don't think I'll do the same anymore. It's a beautiful memory.
Mm,
Jeff and I have talked about if this is in our future for another piece or something, but we're just not the same
yeah,
folks, and it's
yeah,
okay. Um,
yeah.
um, but I loved being on the road. I loved the excitement of a different show every night in a different city, going nonstop for like a couple months. Um, you know, playing for some door money, selling merch. Also like outside of New York, people buy merch. So it's like,
Yeah.
Jesus, I can't believe that this is like funding itself. I can't
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
There were like 7 people at this show. How is this
yeah.
making any money? They're all buying records.
That's amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I have these wonderful, wonderful, and like you know, I I, I I like I said, I have a very very go 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 don't stop
Mm,
personality. So like going from show to show to show to show, going to the record store to drop off stuff, like eating a quick bite, getting a quick shot of whiskey before going on stage, then
mm,
doing it again tomorrow.
yeah.
I like thrive
Yeah.
in that
Yeah. You could do that.
atmosphere.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thrived in that atmosphere. And now I just have to go a little slower.
yeah.
I like being home. I like letting pieces gestate for years. I like
Mm.
workshops. So even though it was like one of my favorite memories, musical memories and experiences, I'm just like in a different place now.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Oh man, I want to see this cardboard box set. I love that idea, man.
Yeah.
Paul, I've learned a ton in this conversation, man. I appreciate you so much. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um,
Same.
yeah, I'm psyched to hear your solo set, and I'm psyched to grab that 4 hour beer and just talk about
Yeah.
many more things.
I
Let's do that.
cannot wait.
Awesome.
All
I'm
right.
gonna take you up on this. I'm gonna hold you to it. We're gonna do this.
Great.
Ben, have a great rehearsal today. I'll see you soon.
Thanks. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.